Good morning. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. I'm Barry Bryson, and we're continuing our study of the suffering servant passage in Isaiah chapters 40 through the first verses of chapter 56. And we're going to start our conversation about chapter 53 today. I want to take just a moment to introduce Isaiah 53, this extended passage which is perhaps the most important, along with Psalm 22, the most important extended prophecy about Jesus' sacrifice, about the necessity of the Messiah as sacrificial lamb in all the Old Testament, and of course it's famously used to share the gospel in the Book of Acts in the passage with the Ethiopian eunuch when when Philip met the Ethiopian eunuch heading south back to the old Nubian kingdom after being in Jerusalem, where he would not have been allowed in the inner courts of the temple, but he was a believer anyway, wealthy enough man to have his own Isaiah scroll, and he was reading. And at the time, back in those days, no one read silently. That's a habit that developed quite late in human history. When people read, they read out loud. He was reading Isaiah, reading this passage, and wanted to know of whom the prophet was speaking, of himself or of someone else. And we'll talk more about the Ethiopian eunuch when we get to chapter 56. Anyway, um, and it says that Philip began at that very passage and spoke to the man about Jesus Christ. And of course, you'd be hard pressed to find a New Testament passage that would be a better place to start than Isaiah 53 if we're going to be talking about Jesus. I feel like we approach this passage with a great deal of reverence and awe, even beyond what we pay maybe to some other passages. I want us to remember that immediately beforehand in Isaiah 52, we were encouraged, we were called to be joyous, jubilant because of our salvation. How beautiful on the hills are the feet of those who bring good news, good tidings. And of course, gospel is good news. I mean, it connects directly with the preaching of Jesus in the New Testament. And and we're told to be jubilant about that. But we're also told that our jubilation is because we've been redeemed. Our salvation comes at the price of redemption. And we were told in those passages there's going to be a cost. And then in those immediate transitional verses, the end of chapter 52, we're told that he will be marred, that there will be a sprinkling of blood that will accomplish God's victory. And so we have that foreshadowing. But of course, in earlier chapters, we've already seen the Messiah himself has told us already in his own words that he would be he would receive blows. And so we've been somewhat prepared as much as one can be. But this passage, it just, as many times as we read it, packs a punch because it's so personal. We were told in the last chapter, God will bear his mighty arm and will save us. That meant that he had to die, and die in this way. Not only to save us, but to heal us. By his stripes, we are healed. God, we've talked a lot about God triumphing over evil. He could have done that and not save us. I mean, we are, apart from Jesus, an enemy of God, Romans 5, beginning with verse 8. And if all God wanted to do was to conquer evil, he wouldn't have to save us. But he loves us, and he did want to save us. And that is going to cost a lot because we are evil and because God is righteous. And God will have to save us in a way that satisfies his righteousness, that satisfies righteousness itself. And the only way to do that is to pay the price for our sins. And the only one who can do that is God, who is big enough. And the only way that God can be qualified to do that is to become us at the same time that he is himself. And the only way that's going to be achieved is if God will send his Messiah, his servant, his only begotten Son, who is at the same time him and us, who is us and qualified to pay the price, and him big enough to pay the price, and then to come to earth and then do it, to pay the price, to die for our sins. And this passage explains that in such poetic, personal detail that it's not Psalm 22. Psalm 22 is personal and specific. It really is the experience of Jesus on the cross. Isaiah 53 is more reflective. It is more about us processing the cost for ourselves, not just looking at a man brutalized and dying on a cross, but understanding how it should have been us there, and it wasn't. That's what Isaiah 53 is about. And anyway, I think we know that, but I wanted just to stop for a moment, take a pause, and say that before we got into the text of Psalm 53, which we will pick up with next time. We'll look at verses 1 through 3 when we're together again. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word.